What an intro. You should feel inspired. Are you feeling? Already? And what you said, a small country. Estonia is actually bigger than Switzerland. Land-wise. Yes, people-wise, we are smaller. So, good morning. As I understand everybody is still tired. It's a morning, or like Estonians, we are also very sleepy and slow. So that's why I feel very homey here in Bern. And I was asked to talk about 7 principles for creating digital society, even though, to be honest, I don't know why should I give this talk in Switzerland, because life in Switzerland is good. I mean, I think most of, or like all of Estonians, we would change our lives with Swiss if it would be possible. So being digital doesn't mean you actually become like ultra rich or something. And as life in Switzerland is good, why should you change? I mean, why to hassle with some kind of digital transformation? Why? Keep going. Keep going as you go at the moment. So for me personally, I prefer that you would not change at all. Because there will be, or actually there is a competition between countries who gets the best talent. And if you don't change, it increases Estonian chances in future. So please, I will give you some hints, but take it as just a morning wake up, let's say, inspirational speech. Don't change anything. It's hard. It's complicated. It's political. Don't touch this. Just look and see, oh, they have struggled with that 20 years. Why should we? Okay, so my talk will be, I will tell you all the 7 principles we have had during our journey. And then I will tell you why we do this, why all this digitalization is important, but actually why we think it's important for the governments, at least for the Estonian government. And then it's up to you if you actually learn from that anything or not. So just slightly small background. I'm an engineer. I'm doing PhD in computer science at the moment, software engineer. And I have been doing IT all my life. So as a programmer, also as an entrepreneur, only IT. And I sold my first large company when I was 33. Then the government said, oh, like you got this non-competition thing at the moment, so maybe you could come and work for the government. And I obviously said no, because if you're 33 and perfectly healthy, you don't work for the government. So, but they were very persuasive, and I have to admit the challenge was cool. So I accepted the challenge. And it was extremely interesting years working for the government, because for an engineer, like helping change, let's say, a bank or a telecom or like, let's say, a machinery, these are small, very concrete tasks. But if you can change the whole society, it's a totally different thing. It's a totally different challenge. Like the magnitude is like this. So it was extremely interesting. But let's leave that. Now I'm back in private sector, obviously, because enough is enough. I mean, everybody gets mad in government. So let's go and start from something. So to build a digital society, there has to be one crucial thing. You have to have a pain. If you don't have a pain, nothing will happen. See yourself. I mean, Switzerland, everything is good, nothing happens. Estonia, we had a pain. So we broke apart from Soviet Union again in 1991, and the first thing for the country we understood that, ouch, we have a problem. We have more land than Switzerland, but we only have 1.3 million people. So how can we govern this country? So many people live in rural areas. Outside of our capital, the average density is 4 persons per square kilometer. So the private sector understood that we cannot have a bank office in every small town. It's not economically efficient. Or we cannot have a government officer in every village. So what we're going to do? How we solve that problem? So easy. If there is not enough people to serve other people, you need to force people to use internet. Like, try to handle your stuff by yourself. So we don't have people to serve you. Just do it yourself. Use internet services, mobile services. Okay, back then it was only internet services, not with computers. So try to handle yourself. And if you start thinking this way, and if you start like changing your society this way, there are like certain things and certain elements you need to put in place. But we had to do that because we had the pain. If you don't have a pain, I mean, keep going as you go. So, first thing, I mean, if you do this kind of stuff, it's actually not hard. It's like, for an engineer, it's like building an engine. Somebody says to you, please build me an engine. And I give you full support. And then you start doing that. So we actually have a digital transformation handbook. So step by step, what needs to be done to become from zero to hero, digital-wise. So it's like certain elements, like you have to put in place. You have to add some oil, some gasoline, and poof, it starts to work. And back then, when we did it, there wasn't too many countries to copy, but today there are many countries to copy. Like all the Nordic countries, the Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Denmark, they're all the same. Or you can go to extreme and copy China, for example. But it's just the same engine. For example, if you go and analyze those digital societies like an engineer, you see that they're all the same. All the elements are actually the same. So the components of the engines are actually the same. You just need to put them together. And you shouldn't debate them. So you cannot go to the, let's say, we need a carburetor, and you go to the, ask publicly, like, what do people think? Do we need a carburetor or not? So you can't ask those kind of questions. Like, whenever you have decided you build an engine, you build that. And you just have to sell it like also we need a carburetor. And there's nothing to debate about. But let's go, let's start. First principle, enough internet everywhere. So it seems to be simple, but that's actually crucial. If you don't have internet, people can't understand, like, oh, you force me to use e-services and stuff, but if there's no internet, like, how should I do that? So for Estonia, it has been always a goal to invest there a lot. And so I don't stop here. I mean, I think this problem is more or less solved in Europe, even though I still struggle in Germany to get even the 4G to my phone. But countrywide backbone, that's Estonia. It's an ugly picture, but it just shows you. Our goal was to be, with our backbone, not further than 1 mile from every household. And that's more or less achieved. So that was the boring one. The second principle, implement unique identifiers and strong digital identity. So if I say implement unique identifiers, the concept what we have in Estonia is that everything should be described only once. So let's say if we have a database about cars, it's only one database about cars. There's no other databases where the same information is replicated. Or if you talk about persons, then it's only one person, like who is a central object. And that's where already we have a dissonance, for example, with Switzerland. So what is this? It's me. So it's my unique identifier. 379 is my unique identifier. Why this is needed? Because John Smith is not enough. If you have a John Smith in one database and if you have John Smith in another database, you're all data scientists here, so we all understand you can't connect those databases without unique identifiers. And there has to be the same unique identifier in private sector and government. That's the only way how you actually can connect those data sets. Right? There's no other way. You can't do, let's say, John Smith plus address. You still have mistakes. So it has to have unique identifiers. And it doesn't mean if you are a customer, if you are a patient, if you're a citizen, if you're a student, you're still the person. And you should be always identified as 379, etc. And now we have a crucial moment. North Europe sees this as a normal thing, as a core element of digital society. Everything below Denmark sees this as a privacy issue and problem. Right? And the interesting thing is, from engineer perspective, if you don't solve that, you can't create a digital society. That's it. Done. So it's a crucial element. This needs to be solved. Because this is national identity, national ID, as you see and I'm not ashamed to show this number to you, because it's my name. It's my digital name. And as I'm not ashamed of my real name, Kotka actually in English means David Eagle. I'm not ashamed of that. So why should I be ashamed of my digital name? Are you ashamed of your digital names? Just to remind you, everyone in this audience has a digital unique identifier. It's your email. Has to be unique. Because if it's not, wouldn't, how the email knows where to go. So sometimes you are not concerned about unique identifiers, and sometimes you are, but you shouldn't. From the data science perspective, that's a crucial thing. The second thing is that when you start pushing people to use e-services, you have to know who is behind the device, who uses the phone, computer, whatever. So there has to be a strong digital identity. You have to give identity to the people, digital identity that they can be using. We used ID cards because we started with this 17 years ago, and the ID card was the best carrier back then. Today they are quite crappy because they're dependent of hardware and operational systems and drivers. So sometimes they work, sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes the chip maker makes a huge flaws. Like we both suffered, both countries, Switzerland and Estonia last year, because of the broken chip from Infineon. The only difference, also this Austria and Spain suffered. Actually, only Estonia suffered because we used the card, you just had a broken chip. So, I've seen other countries trying to do that. For example, I helped the My Number project in Japan. It totally failed because, again, you shouldn't be afraid of that. If you do the unique identifiers, if you do a digital identity, you have to do it properly since the beginning. So in Japan, what they did, they gave everybody a number. The number is actually on the back side of that card, but it's a secret number. And now it's a question if it's a secret number, how the private sector can connect it with the government sector if it's a secret number. What happens if I lose the card? How I change these numbers if I lose the card? So, many problems happen if you don't do it properly, so it's very important that you basically copy, if you don't want to copy Estonia, copy Finland or copy Denmark, if they are better. So the third principle, if you have unique identifiers in place, in Estonia we have a rule, you can ask information from the citizen or a company only once. So if one minister or department has that information, you cannot ask it again from the citizen, you have to take it from that original source. So what it means is that you get very basically absolutely perfect data sets with a very high quality. If only one department takes care about properties or cars or, let's say, healthcare information, the quality increases significantly. So because you don't have the same information in two places, you don't have a problem that what is the single source of truth or is it up-to-date data or not. So you can create a perfect database set for the data sets for the government. This picture is actually made for politicians, so it looks good. And don't get confused, there is no service bus in between. As I said, it was created for politicians, so it has to look good. The real picture is this one. So as you see, everything is connected point to point. So whenever one, let's say one green dot needs information from another green dot, they form a connection. And it will be a point-to-point connection. It doesn't go through single point of failure or something like that. So let's say if the child is born the hospital just enters information, a new child is born. So in Estonia, the government names the baby. That's the moment you have to laugh. So. But literally, the government names the baby because the government issues the unique identifier, the 379 thing. The government issues a unique identifier, and then the parents, they have 14 days to figure out the real name, for the child. But whenever the child is born, the whole thing starts to happen automatically. I mean, the child is born, so the mother should get support money. Like in Estonia, I don't know, in Switzerland, but in Estonia, the mother gets child support money every month. So how it happens? The unique identifier is issued, so we instantly know that, okay, we need to activate child support money. So who is the mother? The number is linked with the mother. Okay, we know the mother. Now, how can we get the bank account? We go to tax and custom, they know which is the active bank account that mother is using. Okay, now we have a bank account. How much money should we deliver to the lady? That algorithm comes from the Ministry of Social Affairs according to the characteristics of that mother. Okay, now we have the algorithm, now we know the number. The Ministry of Finance can calculate the amount and send the money to the lady. No human interaction. No human interaction needed. Because the fact that the baby was born, that's the only interaction. Okay, that was a exhausting thing, but the rest, everything happens automatically. And that's what is the digitalization of society looks like. And again, I think most of it actually happens already in Switzerland. I mean, you are very well organized people, and then it works. But now think if it works everywhere, literally everywhere, in every instance. Just imagine a service and how it happens. Because 10 years ago, we went mad. We were so fond of this digitalization that everybody wanted to create digital services. So we created, the understanding of digitalization is that, you have a physical service and then, boom, you change it to digital one. For example, before mothers had to apply on paper for the child support money, now she goes to the government portal and does the same application. So that's the digitalization. It's not. It's not. The point is that people don't want to use government services. Because how many houses you are building during your lifetime? 1, 2, 3. So can you let's talk about user experience. To build a house, you need a construction permit. How many times during your lifetime you apply for the construction permit? 2 times? Can you still remember? Yeah, I remember. I did it 10 years ago. Yeah, I remember. Come on. Even if your bank changes the UI, you are insane because why they changed that? I'm so used with the old one. So people actually don't want to use government services because it's always a new thing for them. And if something happens seamlessly, just in the background, it should be great. And that's actually a very concerning thing. You have to change the mindset of the whole service owners. Estonia has 2 services on paper. It's getting married and divorced. That's actually one thing I envy Denmark. In Denmark, you can actually divorce over the e-service. That's actually a fabulous thing because, I think in Estonia, the government actually enjoys the thing that you need to go with your old wife, you need to go to the same clerk who married you, and you had to sit there jointly and wait for your time to appear, and then in front of the clerk, you have to say, why you broke up? No. So I think they do it deliberately to get less divorces. But what if it would be e-service? In India, there are some places where the husband can say 3 times talak, talak, talak. Boom! divorce. So that's the service. So, but the point is that you have to be thinking differently. And I mean, just one funny example of Estonians being mad. We delivered a service for Olympic winners. So Olympic winners can apply, Olympic winners get their specific pension. So Olympic winners can apply for a specific pension from the government portal. And then we started to think, how many Olympic winners do we have? Five, six. So again, understanding that it's always the digital is not always the solution, but just to show how mad Estonia went with the digitalization. So, and the fact that every instant takes care of their own data, and every silo is taking care of their own data, it only starts to work as an engine if you have this once-only catalyst. And the society actually loves that. I mean, the people love the fact that if they have given information to one institution, you shouldn't run around with papers, or you shouldn't run around with data and give it to another one. So once-only catalyst definitely helped us to increase the data sharing in Estonia. The fourth principle, now you have seen the everything is connected thing in Estonia, and obviously, as you are the Swiss people, everybody has in mind only one question. What about privacy? Right? How many people had that question in the head, seeing my connected picture? Please raise your hands. Oh, not bad. Improving. I have to come back. So, what I mean with being connected in Estonia is, I will use the healthcare example. So in Estonia, what happens? If something happens in South Estonia with you, let's say you break your leg, and you are treated in South Estonia. So X-ray pictures, everything is done in South Estonia. But you live in North Estonia. And a week later, you need to go to the doctor to re-examine your leg, right? From the customer or the patient perspective, would it be smart if the North Estonian doctor can see what the South Estonian doctor was doing with this leg, or how the leg looked like when it was broken, right? So would it be smart if they could change the X-ray pictures, right? So in our society, we believe that if doctors have the full history with your healthcare data, it actually leads to the better healthcare. We believe in that. Maybe it's different in Switzerland, but we believe. I mean, we like the fact that I go to the doctor and I don't have to start again filling this registration paper. Have you had measles before? I mean, look at the system. That's how we feel how it should be. Right. It would be smart if the information is connected and they can get all my medical history, because sometimes if you have had a very tough medical history and you have many things and you need to refill the paper, you miss something because it was so long time ago I had this cancer, so why to mention. You're laughing, but why it's not connected? Because of this. Because you think that if everything is connected, it's a problem. But I think that the fact that many hospitals in Switzerland are still using paper patient records are actually less privacy protective than we do. The fact is that if you have a patient record on paper or in hospital system, how you know who has accessed that data? Okay, thanks to GDPR now we have a possibility to understand, but how can you be sure that your data is not leaked or peaked? How the hell Michael Schumacher patient record was leaked from Swiss hospital? Can you comment that? How this has been possible? I tell you. That's a phone. Every phone has a camera. Even the cleaning lady has a camera with a phone. Who took the pictures? Nobody knows. And now think about if everything is digital. Yes, you have to get the information to the screen, and you can picture the screen, obviously. But who took it to the screen? You leave traces. So in Estonia, I always know who has accessed my data. And I control that. That's a patient portal. I can just log in and see who has accessed my data. If I can't recognize a name here, this is my lung doctor, this is my heart doctor, this is my family doctor. So I know all those names, so I'm cool. If they manipulate with my data, I'm totally okay with that. If I find the name here I don't recognize, I can ask from the hospital why this person looked at my data. If there is no proper answer, and even if the person is a famous surgeon, let's say the best surgeon in Estonia, fired instantly, like basically out, same day from the house. If this information would be given to the third person, let's say Michael Schumacher is to the journalist, the person goes to jail. Like, just start packing. You're going anyway. It's up to the judge if you go for 1 year or 3 years, but you are going. And no excuses. Even if your aim very good, you will go to jail. So, and we have had those cases, and people have actually sit there. And suddenly you understand that, wow, we have solved the privacy issue and data protection, because doctors don't want to go to jail somehow. Another thing, if you study for MD, you study for 7 years, and then you practice 2 years, and then you practice another 2 years. So 11 years of your life you waste to become an MD, and then you're willing to give it away just because I want to sneak what was the illness of our former prime minister. Right? No. And our society and some other societies, we have shown it actually works. So if you give people a control, if people become their own big brother, you solve the privacy issue. And you can start connecting everything. I can see if police has queried me. Obviously, if I'm under investigation during that period, I cannot see that. But afterwards, I can see, yeah, you were under investigation and we did some queries about you. And that's a normal thing. So my point here is that connecting data actually increases the privacy and data protection, plus it solves complicated problems that you can't solve without connecting the data, like healthcare. So, fifth principle, continuously work to build the trust. In Estonia, it's totally fine the data is connected. And the fact that even companies give their business-to-business data to the government for getting the better market back. But the fifth principle is important because the trust comes only through good examples. If government, let's say, asks for more data or connects more data, it needs to give back certain elements. And definitely it has to start, that's the picture from the handbook, it has to be a true service owner. So every department, every silo needs to understand what service they're providing, through which channels they're providing that, what are the KPIs, and optimize it according to that. A common mistake is that departments start to solve their problems in 100% manner. Meaning they take their world and try to be digital everywhere. But as I said with the example with Olympic winners, you don't have to digitalize everything. 80% can be easily digitalized, and then the last 20% can be a nightmare. And also it can be a nightmare because people don't have enough digital skills, for example, if it's meant to be for elder people. Fine. But the fact that the 20% is complicated doesn't mean that the 80% couldn't be super simple. Let's take the same marriage thing. It's not solved in Estonia, but I hope it will be soon. If you get married, and then in Estonia the female part usually changes the name to the male's name, husband's name. So, and after the honeymoon, you come back, and then the lady has to go to the passport to get the new passport, or driving license to get the new driving license, to do a couple of visits to the government. Why? We know 1 month in advance that they're getting married. How we know? Because they have to tell us. In Estonia it's called cooling down period. Nobody uses that, but it's meant to be 1 month you say that, okay, we want to get married, and if you still want after a month, then you can get them married. So like, to avoid the Las Vegas stuff, like, you know, oh, I'm married. No. In Estonia, you can't. So 1 month we know. So we also know that, like, do they want to change the names or not? If they want to change the names, why cannot we do this way that whenever you say the I do and change the rings and kissing, the clerk will just take the new passport and driving license and here are your new documents. I mean, we could do that because we know this in advance. No, we can't do it because there are cases where actually the lady or the man says no. Okay. How many cases? Less than 1 for 100. So we torture 99 because 1 is reasonable. Can we actually torture the 1 and plan the service for 99? So that's the mindset change. And the government starts to think this way, and in Estonia it's not 100% perfect, obviously. There are like many silos who still haven't figured it out. But many of them, especially mostly used, like let's say tax and custom, they are doing really well. But that's the thing, like that the government, every silo, every service owner actually thinks how to make it the best one in the world. And that's how you build the trust. Obviously, you have to have certain other elements, like let's say you have to have cybersecurity in a high level. Like we had our first cyber war recorded in human history, 2007, with our neighbor. You know, we have like one very aggressive neighbor. It's called Latvia. No, just kidding. That's another one. So cybersecurity has to be in a very high level, even though I have to admit, it seems to be that cybersecurity is becoming not so important at all. I was stunned that, for example, the same German chip maker Infineon, their share raised last year 50%. So if you invested 100,000, in the end of the year you could get back 150,000. Not that bad for 1 year. And during that year they had a huge chip failure. Many countries, many governments, many companies suffered. Millions, tens of millions cards broken. And the share price goes like this. So nobody cares if you actually do a crappy cyber. Or let's take another example. Facebook. They had a huge scandal with Cambridge Analytics. The price went back for a couple of days. Now it's back up again. Okay, they had a new problem yesterday with China, but like, it's up again. So basically, share buyers don't care if you have security problems. And that's actually worrying, because in society, you cannot build a trust inside a society if nobody cares. But your government has to care. And we have a NATO Cybersecurity Excellence Center in Estonia, so if you plan to visit to Estonia, please, if you're a scientist, also visit there, that institution. It's a great one. And you have to do some extra stuff. So if you're fully digital, you need a backup plan. So we have created a network of data embassies. That's actually my PhD, but it's another topic. So, sixth principle, no legacy. And what do we mean? What do we mean about that? So, no legacy. In Estonia, we have a no legacy policy. So it's not a law, but it's like a principle, and this principle is followed very much. So what it means, I see some people using quite advanced computers. Like, if you are not, let's say, an artist or like designer, why you need to change your computer after every 3 years? Just for doing your Word and mails and browser, why you change your computer after every 3-4 years? It breaks. Oh, yeah, if you're lousy. But, I mean, the new one is thinner and it's actually cooler and somehow it breaks because you have done with funky stuff with your computer and it's full of bots and different kind of diseases that they don't even want to touch your computer anymore. So it's like cars, like you change your car. But somehow the information systems, you treat them as Swiss watches, meaning if you create one, it should be last for the eternity. I have one. I was joking, yes. Come on. In Finland, they still have 5,000 COBOL programmers. COBOL. COBOL is a language that was invented in 1959. So the system that was created, let's say not in 1959, but let's say the system that was created in 2004, there wasn't any touch screens, wiping, things like that. That wasn't there. There wasn't any voice recognition. Cybersecurity 10 years ago. Cybersecurity today, wow. So people's habits have changed. Technology has changed. The way how we use technology has changed. The way how we could use the technology has changed. The laws have changed. The rules have changed. So many things have been changed, but you still keep the old systems. Why? And then at the same time, with hardware, cloud, Let's virtualization. In hardware network, you are changing. That's okay. With systems, you're not changing. You still have these old things, and you say, the Estonians, they could do it because they started from the scratch, but we still have this legacy stuff. I mean, Soviet Union was bad, but it wasn't actually so bad. I mean, we still had some. We didn't eat our children, so there was some civilization inside that prison. So we had systems before breaking apart. But to improve, it means that you have to have a policy how you continuously change that. And in Estonia, we have a policy that there cannot be any meaningful system that is older than 13 years. So 10 years, you live with a system, and then you need to start planning a new one and replace the old one, even if it works. Because people habits are changing, technology is changing, laws are changing, so many things are changing. And it's easier if you know that this state is coming, so you start planning the money for that transition. And we figured out, we actually ran a study, in this way it's actually cheaper to maintain your systems over the years than having one system for 30 years and then trying to solve it with a new system. I mean, whoever is a developer here, how often you do your releases? I'm talking here about 13 years release, and I'm innovator. Today, the releases are actually made on daily basis, even 5 times per day. That's a normality. That's how it should be. But let's come first from the government. We are slower, so let's make the 13 years happen. So you have to have a system where you plan, you have a business case, you have a result, you learn, the learning becomes new facts, and you have this continuous loop. And it can be shorter than 13 years, but cannot be longer than 13 years. And it's a heavy principle, because, for example, for Nordic countries, they're very digital advanced, but the Finland, Sweden, Denmark, they all struggle with this. And money-wise, what it means. Estonian government IT budget is 100 million euros per year. Around, slightly less, but let's say, for calculations, 100 million euros. Finland, 2 billion. And they are not as connected as we are. So why? Why is this huge difference between Finland and Estonia? Because they are bigger, yes, 4 times. But, I mean, in digital world, the size matters. It's the only thing where the size doesn't matter. If you create let's just give you an example. Switzerland, you are 6 times larger than we are, right? More or less. So in Estonian hospital, as we are a smaller country, we only have two functions. We have patient registration, and the next step is cemetery. Because we are a smaller country and we cannot afford all these functionalities in a hospital. But you, as a larger country, people-wise, you also can have operation module, ambulance, and everything, right? In Estonian bank, if you log into the bank account, you only can check the bank account balance. But you can't do any transactions because we are a smaller country and we cannot afford the functionality. But you, as a larger country, you can do the transfers and buying shares and applying for the loan, etc. Come on. I think in our hospitals, 95% of the functions are the same what you have in Switzerland. I think Estonian bank and e-bank are 95% the same what you have in Switzerland. Because you have to provide the same functions. The difference comes from that you just have more hospitals or you have more banks. But that's the scalability issue. And in time of cloud, scalability is like a very minor problem. So what is your excuse? Cost per transaction is actually better in Switzerland. So larger countries should be more digitalized because they have more to win from digitalization. Cost per transaction is smaller compared with smaller countries. So literally it should be vice versa. You should tell me how to build a digital society. Okay. Seventh and last principle. Continuously amuse your audience. Think big. Actually, I'm running out of time. Can I go 5 minutes over? Oh, yes. So everything's connected in Estonia. And I just want you to say that, like, if government has the trust of the people and companies, you can do enormously extremely funny thing. We have a real-time economy in Estonia. What it means is that on a daily basis we know how people have been moving between companies, and on a monthly basis we know how business-to-business deals are happening between the companies. How we know? Because they give this information to us freely. I mean, freely. And there wasn't even a debate, like, when government asked, like, please give us that data because then we can kill the VAT fraud from the market, companies just gave it. So if you're a data scientist, like, you should be basically getting an orgasm at the moment. This is our gas industry. So obviously it's aggregated, but you see, here we can see it's like VAT fraud most probably. So there are invoice factors because those companies only interact with that one company. So you go in and you basically kill that VAT fraud. But obviously, what else it gives you? If everything is connected business-wise, you know on a monthly basis how much money went from one industry to another industry, from one sector to another sector, from one area to another area. It gives you full transparency of what happens in your economy. So you can start basically running future prediction models on top of that, and you can do this kind of predictions that there's an 80% of chance that we might lose 3,000 jobs in East Estonia in chemical industry during the next 6 months. So it basically changes the whole way how the country can be governed. Obviously, we still have a problem. The politicians we have, they are still like... So they are actually chosen in the old methods way, like, so populists. So I mean, if you give this kind of estimation to the populist, like, what do you think what they're going to do? Oh, we should go there and we should give them some kind of incentives, tax incentives, support money, whatever, I mean, like, to release the pain of those 3,000 people. But maybe it's good. Maybe the AI says that, and it's good that this happens. So it's actually completely changes the way how the countries are governed. Which again, like life in Switzerland is good, that's not the problem. But there is another problem, and it's the winter is coming. I know it's summer, but like in our latitude it's always winter. So do you remember how you bought music 20 years ago? CDs. And CD was extreme improvement compared with cassette. I mean, if you wanted to listen, let's say, song on the B-side number 6, compared with song number 6, and voila, CD was a huge improvement, and nobody thought that like there is something better than CD. And it cost 15 euros to get one CD, and you only liked one song from the album, but you had to listen to the whole album because it was a hassle to switch with them, right? Today, free of charge if you use YouTube, or $6.95 if you use Spotify. And you have the whole music available for you. And nobody uses CDs anymore. And the local corner store where you bought the CDs, bankrupt, right? So in less than 20 years, the way how we buy music and how we listen music has totally changed. Why? Because it's easier, less hassle, cheaper, and we like that. So and we don't care that if the local corner store goes to bankruptcy. So we don't care about that, right? Cool. Another example. If you go out from here and ask, let's go back 10 years. 10 years back, 2008, we go out fair from this Kursal and ask for people, can you describe me a perfect phone? Most probably what they do, they would take out their latest Nokia phone and say, oh, it will be like this, but let's say with a better camera and stuff. 10 years ago, nobody would even think about it, or is not able to describe you that phones will become like this, and we will spend 8 hours per day inside of that. And the last thing we do with that is calling, so we should actually rename it. Right? The point is that nobody was able to basically say, even the great companies were not able to say how this will change. 10 years ago, Nokia was #1 telecom company in the world, owning more than 60% of smartphone market. With less than 6 years, it's not even 10 years, 6 years from hero to absolute zero. Even the #1 couldn't see how the industry, where they are actually working, will change. The #1 was not able to see that. So if things happen and people like something, they extremely fast, they change. So why is this important? I wrote an essay with 2 other government officers 4 years ago. Estonia is 1.3 million nation, so I wrote an essay why we have to be 1.3. Because if we want to become richer like Switzerland, we need more wealth to our people. But to get more wealth, we need to be economically more flourishing. To be economically more flourishing, we need to have more people connected with our economy. So we need more people. So what if we become from 1.3 to 10 million? And there are lots of engineers here, so let's take this as an engineering task. From 1.3 to 10. Why 10? Because Sweden was 9.6. So we wanted to be slightly more. To become like to make Estonia great again, like so. We actually were great. I mean, before Second World War, Estonian GDP was exactly the same with Finland per capita. So we were actually there. Before Second World War, we were a great country. So we become great again. Engineers, let's solve it. 10 million Estonians, what can we do? No. I'm missing a slide. What we can do babies. We can do babies. That's one thing what we can do. I have 3 children, so I went to my wife saying like 10 million. She said, no way. And also, she's very smart, so she said like, do you understand if you invest into the babies for first 25 years, they're just liability. They cost. So it's like investment with it's a very long-term investment. So it's actually more rational to invest into the cryptocurrencies or real estate. Okay, nice. So another thing, let's bring in people. Immigration. Like Switzerland has used a lot, Germany, UK, US is all about immigration. So another problem. We are in the latitude of Alaska. Nobody wants to come. Last year we got 7. So families. Now they are healthy and luckily back in Germany. But this is the European quote, every country needs to take somebody. So we tried, failed. But the fact is that if everything is digital, if you can serve your people digitally, if people can give digital signatures and those signatures can be automatically approved by any private or government instance, you don't need a location so much anymore. So we tried to test it, what if we create e-citizenship? You can become an e-Estonian without traveling, right? So if you're an e-Estonian, it doesn't mean you can get to the Estonia or get to the Schengen. But you just can use our services. We create a company, run a company, let's try. Let's run it as a startup. And it seems to be it's a new trend. 35% growing every year. There are more than 100 million digital nomads already, people who can work cross-border. And Diego was one of our first customers. He's a guy who creates algorithms for telecoms and electricity companies, and he needed fast SEPA payments. Voila, create a company in Estonia, run it from there. But we were astonished when last year we got enormous amount of Germans. And we were like, wow, Germany, you are inside of European Union. You are actually European Union. You are inside Eurozone. You are inside SEPA, so why the hell you need a company in Estonia? What is the advantage? What is the thing we give to you? And this lady, they said, I'm a designer, and I have my daily job, but I do something extra cross-border. I have cross-border customers that I serve in the evenings and during the weekends. It's not a huge thing, but I can get a couple of thousands of euros every month as an extra. And I like to do that. And I need to run a business in a very cheap and easy manner. And in Estonia it is. You pay 75 euros per month and you don't have to do anything. So now let's get back to the music. Something is hassle-free, cheaper, easy to use. People don't care about the corner store. So what if your Y and Z generation will open their companies not in Switzerland anymore? Because somewhere else it's completely different experience. Yes, we cannot imagine that it can be completely different, but there was another company who couldn't imagine that there can be a completely different experience, right? Government services become a commodity. And Tim Draper was in Vienna 2 weeks ago on stage talking about the future of governments, and there was only one message. Governments will compete who is able to serve customers the best way, and it will be all about virtual talent. Today it's about physical talent, who gets the best people joining with the country. The future will be the virtual talent. And now I go back to the beginning. Switzerland, do you want to change or not? Are you ready or not? To be honest, I would be glad if you won't be ready, because we are. We are there. We're trying this market out. We have been focusing on digital nomads to do it fully automated way. The numbers are growing. Yes, they're small. In the end of this year, we get 50,000 digital e-residents and around 5,000 companies. 50,000, it's far, far from 10 million. But we have 650,000 working-age people. Adding 50,000 to the 650,000 is adding 9% with less than 3 years. And we're just piloting this, we're just learning this. So do you understand my concept? So it grows, grows, grows. So you know this picture, right? Ta-da! That's the ambition. Actually, that's Tim Draper. Tim Draper said to me that why 10 million? Why 10 million? Why so low? $1 billion. Billion should be your goal. So it's there. So thank you for having me. Those are my children. So continue to do them and think about it. So whenever you actually need a truly digital model, if you need that engine, then we actually have this IKEA brochure, the handbook, one by one step. You can actually make it happen. But first of all, do you actually need that? Life is good in Switzerland. Thank you.